flank was being endangered and said, please don't bother me now, I'm eating. You know, let me finish my lunch, basically. And that lost that section of the battle. And other bits of the army arrived too late for the battle, and there were little side battles going on. But the main battle actually lasted one day. I've forgotten the date, but it lasted just one day. 250,000 men involved.
And that was the last of the samurai?
Sorry?
That was the last of the samurai?
No, there was another battle a little bit later. The final battle, I think, took place 3 or 4 years later, which finally, because after Sekigahara, there were still many daimyo that were not aligned to the Tokugawa, to East Tokugawa. So it took him 3 or 4 years to clean up, mop up all the dissidents, as it were. And the final battle took place where he was wounded, and that was the end of it, and that was the final samurai battle. So that would have been in, what was it called? I think. Tennoji took outside the walls of Osaka in 1615. So 1615 was probably the last real samurai battle. 400 years ago.
In the what was the big battle called again?
Sekigahara.
Sekigahara.
Yeah.
Were there like on the two sides? Was it did Tokugawa win like decisively? Was it, or did they both suffer heavy casualties?
There's no sort of moment where it's a decisive win, but yes, as the battle emerged and ended, and the Western Army realized they were losing, they started retreating, and that basically was the win of the battle. It's very interesting, the two armies approached each other, and there was an incredible fog. Nobody could see anything. They actually bumped into each other, didn't realize it. And they were all standing around, suddenly the fog lifted, and they realized there was the opposing army, and the battle started when the fog lifted.
So how did they recognize each other, though? Because the samurai...
They all wore different pennants and colours, and, you know, they carried their flags, their pennants on. So no, you know, each daimyo had his own insignia, as it were.
Red and white ribbons.
I wonder who was tying them.
Yeah.
Like we use, the ones that we use, those would actually come from the samurai, so they would have their flags and the uniforms would be decorated with the moons, the mons, the family crests, with the sashes.
I suppose if they were looking at you, there was probably a good indication that...
Supposedly, Miyamoto Musashi took place in the Battle of Sekigahara. He would have been 16 years old then, but that's debatable.
The daimyo, did they traditionally the daimyo, would they fight with the army
samurai?
Right up front?
Daimyo were all samurai.
Yeah.
Tokugawa Ieyasu was a very, very famous samurai.
How would they give? They would have other people. Well, how would they give commands from like the front lines of the fight?
No, I'm sure when they were in the fight, they had their commanders and they had their communication lines.
Horns, drums.
Yeah, no, all properly. I mean, it was a well-organized battle, you know. And they planned it, the flank here and the thing and the frontal attack and the sneak attacks. It was all well planned, you know. A very complex battle, but very famous. I'm sure you learned about it at school. You know all about it. There's the expert asking. Yes.
Sensei, so in Kendo, why do we not attack the legs?
We used to. Pre-war Kendo was much different from modern day Kendo. Pre-war Kendo, you could just about do anything. It was a mix of judo and Kendo. You could attack the legs, you could sweep people off their feet, you could rip their arm off, push them up against the wall, throw them, judo throws, whatever. But that changed. A few people got seriously damaged, so, you know, in a sense of,
standardize it as a sport.
so in a sense of, and of course, to revive kendo in Japan, when All Japan Kendo Federation was set up after the war, the one way they could get kendo going again was to define it as a sport. They introduced it into the schooling system as a sport. Of course, now there's the whole sense, of course it's not a sport, it's a way of life, you know, much more important than a sport. But it was originally shown to be a sport. And now, of course, kendo has been reintroduced into the school system as of last year, or certain aspects of martial arts have been reintroduced into the school system. Interestingly enough, if the recent survey taken among kendo players about would you like to see kendo in the Olympics, all the old kendo players said under no circumstances whatsoever, and all the schools and university kendo players said yes, we would like, the majority said yes, we would like to see it in the Olympics. So already there's a conflict in Japan about the status of kendo and how it should be seen.
What is your opinion on that?
Definitely not. But I'm an old kendo player.
And your reason for that?
I think it will corrupt kendo incredibly. You know, start putting electronic sensors in the shinai, and you'll wear red and blue colours, and the whole tradition will disappear. I mean, you know, if you look at traditional taekwondo, for instance, compared to the taekwondo you see in the Olympics, it's two different things. You look at traditional judo and see judo in the Olympics, it's two different things. So it'll definitely be corrupted in some way.
But in a nutshell, don't you think that's what the Japanese made a mistake with, by keeping themselves with just away from the Western world? Because everything evolves.
Well, it wasn't a mistake, that's just the way it was. But yes, and in many ways, I think a lot of what's going on in Japan today is beginning to erode the Japanese society by adopting too much of the Western world. You know, when you start to see that traditional food at schools for the kids, they'd much rather have Kentucky Fried Chicken. This is not good news.
Yes.
It's been overridden in a sense. So yeah, I think that's the problem with the modern world. Everything is melding into a melting pot, and
And
we're losing.
What's your opinion on that, Sensei? Because I think in South Africa, we are in the middle of everything. We're caught in the middle. We have the Western world on one side, we have the Eastern tradition on the other. Yeah. And we get the best of both, but also the worst of both.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think it's exceptionally important to maintain traditions that are workable traditions. I mean, just because something's a tradition doesn't mean that you hang on to it. Huh? And it's no use, it's not an excuse to say, well, it's a tradition. No, I don't buy the tradition that it's okay for the Zulus to carry clubs around with them. It's a dangerous tradition.
Yeah.
I don't get that it's female circumcision is okay because it's a tradition. You understand what I'm saying? You have to see what traditions are workable and meaningful, and those are the ones that you should retain. So there are a lot of Japanese traditions that are very workable, and I wish that a lot of the rest of the world would adopt some of those traditions, because it would make for a better society.
Yeah, the West takes a long time to follow tradition.
Yeah, but you see, the West is such a mix of peoples, you know.
Because if you look at yoga as well, it's from an Eastern tradition. Now it's glorified in the West.
Sure.
And they've made it into such a glorified thing that everybody wants to do it.
Yeah, for a
So
time.
it takes it out, yes, for a time. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right in saying that when you follow tradition, you do it for a longer, sustainable time.
Sure.
When you do it for just the glory of it,
Sure.
it's short-lived.
So in terms of Kendo, Kendo comes from Japan. It has its tradition. If we want to do it, we should absolutely align ourselves with the Japanese way of doing Kendo. End of story. And then you see people around the world thinking that they can do their own style of Kendo, and they can open their Mac dojos and award themselves ninth dans and all that nonsense, you know. So yes, that's very important. Also, as a matter of interest, before the war, I mean, when the All Japan Kendo Federation started with their Dan grades, and your first Shodan to Godan grades, there were no time frames attached to them. You could do your Shodan in year 1, your Nidan in year 2, your Sandan in year 3, your Godan in year 4, and so on. It was only after that, when they systematized it, that they started putting the gaps in how long you'd still have to practice before you can get your next grade. So it's a moving thing at the moment, but you know, we have to follow the Japanese tradition and the Japanese way. Very important.
Guys, if there's any more questions, so we've come to an hour already. I know a lot of people, we've got places to be, but obviously Buster Sensei as well. So do we have any closing questions for Buster Sensei? I think it was all valuable for us to understand the history of Kendo and where it's come from, but I know I've had a few questions specifically about Kendo now, so I don't know if you want to ask those.
Just one more question.
Yes, please go for it.
I don't remember exactly what any details, but wasn't it for a while that in Kendo you could also hit someone in the, I don't know what it's called, but on the top of the door, like here or something?
Yeah. No.
The solar plexus?
No, you can. I mean, you can do that to prevent a point being scored against you.
Yeah.
But only way you score a point
Ski.
is a ski target.
And it has to be purposeful, not just because you're lazy.
Yeah.
And the ski came in later. Huh? Originally, it was just the 3 kote men door. Okay. Are we all knowledgeable now?
Great.
All right, so let's call it a close. I'll wait around if anybody wants to ask any other questions. I'll be around for the next 10 minutes or so.
Thank you, Sensei.
And thank you for listening.
So guys, obviously we wanted to obviously incorporate this. From our dojo alone, we had quite a few questions coming up. I didn't feel qualified myself to answer them, so that's why I thought it would be nice to have Buster Sensei, probably one of our most senior sensei in South Africa, to present it. So thank you guys for coming and staying and listening to what Sensei has to say. And Sensei, we've just got a small gift for you on behalf of the club.
Japanese tradition.
Hi. Great, and as you heard, Buster Sensei will be around for the next 10 minutes or so. All the dojo members from Rivonia, we have our little club meeting, very informal, so we'll just hang around as well, okay?
As a matter of interest, I was told, I'm not sure how true it is, this gift giving is very important in Japan, and something like 30% of disposable income in Japan is spent on buying gifts and giving people gifts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Sensei.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sensei. Thank you. I actually found out now I know why the food was so expensive in Japan. It's not because it's raised to be so expensive.